There's a question that millions of people are asking right now, often silently, often after yet another failed attempt at eating perfectly. If I've been doing everything right, why doesn't anything seem to stick? You've cut the carbs. You've avoided sugar. Maybe you've gone keto, tried intermittent fasting, followed every rule you could find. And for a while, something worked. But then life happened. The routine broke. The results faded. And the confusion came back, heavier than before. Here's what most people are never told. Strict diets and long-term blood sugar balance are not the same thing. And confusing the two might be exactly why so many people end up right back where they started. Today, we're going to talk about what the research actually shows, not what the diet industry wants you to believe, like about what works better when it comes to supporting healthy blood sugar over time. Let's start with what strict diets actually do. When someone drastically cuts carbohydrates or follows an extremely rigid eating plan, something real happens in the short term. Blood sugar levels often drop. Energy may improve. The scale moves. It feels like the answer. And for some people, in some situations, aggressive dietary changes are absolutely necessary, and their doctor will tell them that directly. But here's where it gets interesting. For a large portion of people, especially those over 45, the problem isn't just what they're eating in a controlled environment. The problem is what happens to glucose regulation over time, under real-life conditions. Stress, sleep disruption, hormonal shifts, inflammation, these are forces that no meal plan fully accounts for. Studies have shown that even people who follow strict diets often see their fasting glucose creep back up within 1 to 2 years, and not 12 months because they failed, but because the underlying metabolic environment was never fully addressed. This is the part most diet programs skip entirely. If this sounds familiar, if you've been through the cycle of restriction, results, and then regression, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from and whether you know someone who's been through this same frustrating loop. Because you are not alone. And the fact that it didn't stick is not a character flaw. It's a systems problem. So what does long-term blood sugar support actually look like? The research points to something more nuanced than restriction. It points to metabolic consistency. The idea that your body's ability to process and regulate glucose depends not just on what you eat in a single day, but on how well your cells respond to insulin over time. Insulin sensitivity is the key mechanism here. When cells become less responsive to insulin, a process that can develop gradually over years, glucose has nowhere to go efficiently. It lingers, it spikes. It creates a cascade that affects energy, weight, mood, and even sleep. Strict diets can create temporary improvements in this pattern, but they don't automatically rebuild insulin sensitivity at the cellular level. That's a deeper process, and it requires consistency, not just intensity. Here's what the data suggests works better long-term. Moderate, sustainable eating patterns, not elimination, but reduction of high glycemic loads. Movement spread across the day, not just one intense session. Sleep quality, which has a direct and measurable impact on glucose metabolism. And increasingly, nutritional support that targets the mechanisms of metabolic function, not just calorie counts. This is where things start to shift for many people. Not when they find a stricter diet, but when they stop looking for perfection and start building a more supported system. There's a concept in metabolic research called the glucose floor, and I get the why no baseline your body returns to when you're not actively managing it. People who rely solely on restriction often have a glucose floor that hasn't changed because the metabolic machinery underneath hasn't been addressed. What helps lower that floor sustainably? Consistency over time, targeted nutritional compounds that support insulin sensitivity, lifestyle patterns that reduce cortisol-driven glucose spikes, and something that's easy to overlook, a mindset shift from punishment-based eating to support-based living. This isn't motivational language, it's metabolic logic. When your body feels supported rather than deprived, the physiological stress response decreases. And that alone can have a measurable impact on fasting glucose and post-meal spikes. Now, none of this means strict diets have no value. For people in certain metabolic situations, medical supervision may require significant dietary changes, and that's a conversation to have with your healthcare provider. Not a YouTube video, but for the millions of people who are in the in-between space. Not in a medical crisis, but not thriving either, the evidence increasingly points to support-based strategies over pure restriction. And part of that support can include well-formulated nutritional tools designed to help the body manage glucose more effectively, especially the kind that target known mechanisms like insulin signaling, after-meal glucose response, and cellular energy production. These aren't magic. They don't replace good habits. But for many people, they fill a gap that diet alone never could. If today's video helped you see this from a different angle, if the idea of support over restriction resonates with where you are right now, I'd encourage you to take a look at the first pinned comment below this video. There, you'll find information about the support formula we referenced today, including its ingredients, how it works, and what to expect. No pressure, no hype, just transparent information for people who are ready to think about this differently. Take care of your metabolism. It's been working hard for you.